What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and today's video is for Circus Electrique, which is coming out today, as a matter of fact. And this video serves as a first impressions review, as well as to give you some beginner tips to get you started. If the first few images are giving you some ASMR level good tingle feeling vibes, it's because you're a fan of turn-based RPGs. This one is definitely a worthy addition. Kind of like if Darkest Dungeon and Iratus got together and had a kid, and then they took that kid to the circus, and the kid really liked it, and then they went through a steampunk phase and said, "It's not a phase, Mom!" With that said, I love steampunk. We need more steampunk. Who doesn't like steampunk, honestly? You have cool things like 19th century segways. Look at it. Awesome. As of today, September 6th, the game is basically everywhere. If you play on PC, you can pick it up on Steam or Epic, and if you go on Epic, make sure you use code Shuffle at checkout to support the channel. But besides that, it's also on Xbox X and S, as well as Xbox One, PS4, PS5, and Nintendo Switch. Me, I'm kind of a Switch main as my console of choice now, so I might get it on that as well. The game is split up into two halves. The first is the turn-based battler that you see and you're probably familiar with. It comes with its own tactical depth of weather effects and damage types and reach and ranks and all that good stuff. And the other half is circus management. What's really cool about this dichotomy is that your units don't have to just be really good at combat, they have to be good at being circus performers. So a unit may look good on paper in terms of their combat, they have some cool attacks, and don't worry, all the classes get different attacks when they roll in, they have different traits, and you have all this really cool combat stuff, but womp womp, apparently, for their circus position, they like to be on the left side. And you already have like 14 left arrow units, so you gotta make some choices. Who gets the boot? You can upgrade your facilities to get various bonuses, and it unlocks further as the game progresses, but the main draw of the base management are the circus shows. The shows boil down to a minigame of pretty much numbers and synergy, so you have to pick units that fit in the position, but also vibe with each other. So there's a lot of stuff to consider. You only start with one circus act that you can do, but over the course of the game, you do unlock plenty more to the point where you're cycling quite a few and they can play to your strengths. But something to also be aware of is the novelty of each act. So if you have one really good team of 4 units and you just want to keep slamming them every single day, guess what? You can't. So that means you always have to be rotating units out of the facilities, out of the circus shows, and through combat. So there's actually a lot of management for your roster. While you're rebuilding your circus, you get to go through 6 different districts in steampunk London. Don't worry, there won't be any spoilers in the background footage, but as you progress through these areas, you can find items, do mini games, and unlock various classes. Although I will say, I'm almost through Area 2 and I still have not unlocked the Robo-Bear. Big sad. The game has 15 different classes, which is pretty robust as far as the turn-based game goes. You start off with the main ones like strongmen, fireblowers, clowns, and escape artists. But over time, you unlock a bunch of other stuff like illusionists or ventriloquists and the aforementioned Robo-Bears. Out of the starter units, the clowns are your best healers, but if you need some raw damage, which I recommend you probably do, then using some combination of strongmen and fireblowers is the best way to go. The escape artists are pretty interesting and they have a lot of utility, but you don't need it that early. Although they do have a stun when they're in the back ranks, and as we know, stuns win in every game. As for the game itself, I really love the aesthetics and the art direction. The scenes are fully voice acted.
I promised myself I would never see him again. 10 years is far too soon, after what he did.
Each character has their own respective voice actor, and they have a few different still images as they go through dialogue, which is pretty nice. And as I said before, I really love steampunk. The OST definitely hits home with its circusy, steampunky vibe, and the art overall for the various assets is very pleasant to look at. As for the gameplay, it is a side-facing turn-based battler. You got your 4-on-4 units, so your positioning is very important, so each character can hit certain areas, and they can only do certain attacks from certain spots on the field. So the way you position your units is very important. There's also a lot of depth in the combat if you choose to use it. Sure, you can just sit there and slam the fire attack and strongman hit in the face front blow for big damage and 3-tap every enemy. You could do that. But as the game goes on, that gets a bit harder to do because the enemy movesets get more complex. Which means you have to start using the other stuff like your stances, your team buffs, your synergies, your movement skills, and of course your amaze-meter, which can do very cool things like shower your team in popcorn. When you're going through the districts, it has a board game type of feel. You go through various nodes, having events or getting loot or fights, but there are also a ton of little mini games that dot the landscape. The ones I've seen so far are ones where you have to spin a wheel to try and keep your score over a targeted number, but you can always score negative, so you can kind of screw yourself. There's a lot of gambling in that one. There's also, I think it's called Shuffle Puck. It's not called that in the game, but it's the thing that I think the elderly people play on the cruise ships, where they hit the puck onto like the hopscotch thing and try and score points. Like, yeah, we have that too, except it's with coins and you bully kids out of their money, which is great. And then there's another one about feeding people, where it randomly roulettes through your food to try and land on the proper amount to serve, and if you go over, you screw up everything, and I'll try and add that in if I remember where the footage is. My final thoughts of the game is that it is very enjoyable. I've been loving it, I've been playing it all over the weekend, and I'm going to eventually do a hard mode playthrough of some kind. The difficulty ramps up pretty fast as well. First area is kind of a breeze, and then once you get to the second area, you have to start dealing with the weather effects. Enemies get a lot more accuracy modifiers, and it really starts to show off the depth of combat. Of course, if the game ever like bullies you and clowns on you and stuff like that, you can always save scum, because there's, auto saves and stuff like that. So make sure to do that if you're like me and you lose the same fight twice. Other than that, the game definitely scratches an itch that I've been needing, which is steampunk type of aesthetics in my turn-based battlers. I'm playing way too much dark fantasy and medieval stuff lately. If you heard all that and you decide you want to try the game out for yourself, or even just look at it, click the link down below in the description box to help support the channel. It says Saber GG, but it'll take you to the Circus Electrique store page. Finally, we're going to wrap up the video with some tips, and the reason these tips are important to put in this video is because after this really cool first impressions review, you went to the description box, you clicked the link, you supported Shuff, and then you bought the game and you came back and you're like, Shuff, I need some tips. I'm getting clapped by these Segway guards. So what can you tell me for the first, couple hours of the game to help me not get absolutely decimated? All right, I got you. First of all, the game actually does a really good job with the tutorials, so even though I'm about to give you some tips, make sure you read through them, and you can always go back to check out the stuff like the terminology at your leisure. My first tip for you is to keep your devotion up. Seems pretty intuitive because your units have devotion, and getting it up is synonymous with performing better. You get more accuracy, moves do better, your circus performances are better, your units don't run away because they're pissed off and sad. They can even get positive effects if their devotion stays high for a long time. There's a lot of good reasons to make sure that your devotion is as high as possible. Make sure you're looking at your units to see what skills they have that boost devotion. Otherwise, you can boost devotion through things like Circus Acts, or items like Cola. My second tip, make sure to rotate your units regularly. I said this during the video, but the game really is balanced around it. If your units are getting beat up too fast or too much in the battles, take them out for a couple days, put them in the sleep car, heal them up, and then bring them back. There are also items and skills that can heal. The reason I say the game is balanced around this is because even if you sit there and bring 2 clowns with every party and spam the healing skill, the enemies do so much damage that you're not going to be able to sustain it, plus you're losing devotion. So it's actually better to just focus on damage and control, heal when you absolutely need it, but then rotate your units. Tip number 3, your skill damage won't feel like it scales that well when you increase the skill rank. Your damage mostly comes from leveling the units because they get higher base damage, and then also through modifiers. You don't see many of these in the first area, but in the second area, this is when you start to see them a lot. There are specifically things like weather effects. The weather effects can increase or decrease various elemental effects, so make sure you keep an eye on those and bring the appropriate units. Although I will say the nighttime battles are pretty freaking hard. Not only do you have to deal with the encounter itself and its normal modifiers, if you take too long, guards come to fight you, which honestly is a good way to get yourself killed. My fourth tip, try each class a few times. Their skills, like their traits and their moves, are randomized, as well as their circus abilities. All of these get randomized when you pick them up, so 2 clowns may not play the same even though they look the same. Being able to balance the combat skills you have as well as their circus performance acts is key to victory, which is kind of a hybrid with my 5th tip, which is don't just focus on combat performance. Make sure you're always looking at your circus acts, their stats, and doing your best to keep your circus acts as flowing as possible, because it is very easy to have a couple units die that you really needed, and then you have some really bad circus performances coming up and you have to recruit more people. Alright, y'all, that's gonna do it for the video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you're thinking down below in the comments. Make sure you check out the box for the cool links, specifically the tracking links, so that way you can support the channel. Let me know if there's any other content with Circus Electrique you want to see. If you want to see a full playthrough, let me know. If you want to see some various guides or tips or whatever, feel free to let me know because this game is definitely within my wheelhouse. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.